Hey guys, I pray you're blessed today. I wanted to thank you all first and foremost for the prayers last night. I deeply appreciate it. I felt every single one of them. The anger from the grief, it has subsided. I have just relinquished it 100% to Jesus. I cannot in myself stop myself from this, but I know with the Lord's help, I am more than an overcomer, and I pray those of you that are suffering with anger or anxiety or fear or whatever you may be going with, that you would lay it down at his feet and not pick it back up. But if you do pick it back up, give it back to him. You know, that's how the sanctification process goes. We give it to the Lord, and he starts pulling that out of us. The more we give it to him, even after we take it back, the more we give it to him, the more he starts pulling these negative thoughts, these negative emotions, these ungodly desires that we may have. He starts pulling them out of us, and he starts working on us and purifying us and cleansing us. You know, his blood cleanses us from all unrighteousness. And it's an ongoing process. But all right, I have been asked to talk about narcissism. I am not an expert on narcissism, but a dear sister in Christ today asked me if I would talk a little bit about my experiences of being married to one. And I was briefly married to one for about 3 years. It's probably longer than that, but half the time we were separated. So time is kind of like, we were married in 2009 and we were divorced 2013. So about 4 years. Half of that we were separated, which is sad to say, but half of it we were spent separated. So I was married to a man who I truly do believe was a narcissist. He was undiagnosed, but he had all of the telltale signs that he was a narcissist. And so as I read this article, I'll stop and I'll tell you all some of the things that I went through. Some of them I'm not going to talk about because they are too personal, and I don't believe that they should just be shared on here, especially in mixed company. It's too hard and awkward for me to share this in mixed company. No offense to you brothers, but there's just some things that shouldn't be shared. And it doesn't really, it just paints my ex in a really bad picture, which I hate to say. Narcissists are very selfish. And the sad thing is they don't even realize that they're being selfish. To them, they are deserving of this special treatment that they think that they're owed. And so they don't look at things the same way that we do. So I am going to read this definition. This is from the Mayo Clinic. Narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, is a mental health condition in which people have an unreasonably high sense of their own importance. They are puffed up in their pride. They need and seek too much attention and want people to admire them. People with this disorder may lack the ability to understand or care about the feelings of others, but behind this mask of extreme confidence, they are not sure of their self-worth and are easily upset at the slightest criticism. They hate criticism, absolutely hate it. Even if it's constructive criticism, they absolutely hate it. A narcissistic personality disorder causes problems in many areas of life, such as a relationship, work, school, or financial matters. People with narcissistic personality disorder may be genuinely unhappy and disappointed when they've not been given the special favors or admiration that they believe they are deserved. They may find their relationships troubled and unfulfilling, and other people may not enjoy being around them. That's an understatement. Treatment for narcissistic personality disorder centers around talk therapy, also called psychotherapy. You need Jesus. Plain and simple, you need Jesus. Narcissistic personality disorder affects more males than females and it often begins in the teens or early adulthood. Some children may show traits of narcissism, but often it is typical for their age and doesn't mean they'll go on to develop narcissistic personality disorder. My ex-husband was raised by his grandmother, and his grandmother, and he was not ashamed to admit this, his grandmother told him that there was no woman on the face of the earth that was good enough for him. And so he had this puffed up manner that he could have whoever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and that he was God's gift to women in all creation. He was a good looking man, but he wasn't like drop dead gorgeous. But he was very outgoing, very charming. I think he could have wooed the socks off a goat. I really do. I think he could have wooed the socks off a goat. He was just very, very charming. And to a 22-year-old young woman who had never really been in a serious relationship. I had had boyfriends, but they'd never been serious. I was starving for love and attention. And just wanted a man to love me for me. And so the moment that my ex paid any attention to me, I was hooked. And there were signs there before we got married, but I ignored them. I didn't know what a narcissist was, and so I stayed in this relationship where he had a volatile temper when he didn't get his way, to the point where I was even terrified at one time that he was going to hurt me, and he had to reassure me he was not going to hurt me, nor would he ever hurt me in any way, which he could not promise because he definitely hurt me. So we're going to go on to this article. This article was written in January of 23, so it does have some age behind it, but not a whole lot. And like I said, it's titled, How Should Christians Respond to Narcissistic People? Narcissism is a growing problem. In one study involving a data pool of 37,000 college students, researchers found that over a 30-year period, narcissistic personality traits rose at the same speed as obesity rates. For some, their narcissism reaches a level of being clinically diagnosed as narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, which requires extensive treatment to remedy. While you may not be in a relationship with anyone who suffers from NPD, you have likely been the brunt of someone else's narcissistic behavior. When someone treats you as though you are a means to their self-important ends. And that's one thing you have to realize about a narcissist. They are manipulators. They are master manipulators. And they know how to manipulate you, manipulate the circumstances, manipulate you based on your feelings. And they know what upsets you, and they use it against you. These relationships can be frustrating, disorientating, and even sometimes downright hurtful, to your mental health. As Christians, how can we respond to the narcissistic people in our lives in a way that is both healthy and holy? The first step is being able to recognize a narcissistic person when you see one. Listen to this, please. I don't believe we're here for long, but until we leave, we are here. And we need to pray for people that they would be delivered of this. It's a spirit. I truly believe that I wouldn't say it's a Jezebel spirit, but Jezebel, as we all know, was very self-serving. And narcissists are self-serving people. And so it wouldn't surprise me if this wasn't tied into with the Jezebel spirit. Jezebel didn't care who she hurt or how she hurt them, as long as she got what she wanted. The hallmark of narcissism is a preoccupation with self. Narcissistic people are often very self-confident and even quite charming, which can help them gain influence and advancement. So when my husband and my ex-husband and I were dating, he was very, very sweet to me, very charming, very polite, very kind. You know, he didn't open the doors for me. He didn't open the car doors for me or anything like that. But he was just very attentive. And so he had this illusion about him that he cared about me. But I'll never forget, it was like, I think it was a month before we were supposed to get married. He got angry at work because someone didn't do their job right according to him. And instead of him going and talking it out with the people, he started yelling and screaming at people. And he says he quit. He walked out. But it would not surprise me if he did not get fired. He had a very ugly temper when he got upset. And so, of course, I just automatically believed him because he was my fiance. And I didn't really honestly know the man very well. And I'll explain why I didn't know the man very well. We had been dating for a week, and we decided we wanted to get married. It was very, very sudden, and it was his idea. I was completely love-struck, or so I thought. And I thought, you know, well, my parents, they didn't know each other very long. You know, we have the rest of our lives to get to know each other. That's a big red flag when someone wants to get married that quick and they keep pushing for it. That's one of the signs you need to take a step back and you need to say, wait a minute, I think we need to slow things down, and we need to really pray about this and seek God's face on this. But you see, I wasn't a Christian. And so asking God for guidance was the last thing on my mind. Another flag was the fact that I had to buy my own wedding band set. Yes, I had to buy my own wedding band set, with him promising me that he would pay me back for the wedding band set. So it wouldn't be me buying it, it would be him buying it, but me buying it in advance. That never happened. I never seen one red cent for my ring set. That was another big flag right there, you know. But he always had an excuse as to why he couldn't pay me when he did. And of course, after we were married, it was the last thing on my mind, was even worrying about the money. But before, I should have been like, okay, this is weird. Why am I buying my own wedding ring set when it's supposed to be him buying it for me? Especially since he's the one that asked me. So that happened, and that should have been, my mom and dad were really worried, but especially when they found out that I bought my own ring set. I was almost hesitant to tell them that I had bought my own ring set, but they kind of needed to know. So they were not happy about that. They were not happy about some of the things that they were seeing and how fast things were progressing, especially since neither one of us were Christians, but we were both grown people, and there was nothing they could do about it. All right, so however, as you get closer to them, you will find that they lack empathy. Remember that they lack empathy and are prone to lash out at others when they feel their personal fulfillment is being encroached upon. So, like I said, a month before we were supposed to get married, he just up and quit his job. Came home in a volatile temper, throwing stuff and cussing and just having a fit of rage because nobody knew what they were doing. And so of course, because things didn't go the way he wanted them to go, he felt like he was done wrong at work. And he was very arrogant. Nobody could do a better job than him. He could have done it better. He was just a journeyman. He was an electrician, but he was only a journeyman. He wasn't even a master electrician. He was just a journeyman. And so he could have done it better than anybody else. He could have done that blindfolded. And I mean, just very arrogant and cocky and very demeaning of anyone else in that profession, especially someone that he worked with. So, narcissists may attack or accuse those who contradict them, even as going as far as to humiliate them publicly. I can't tell you how many times he embarrassed me because I said something out of turn, or he would get angry because things didn't go his way, and he would take a pun at me, take a jab at me. They become jealous of others' success or relationships and attempt to isolate those close to them while attacking their self-esteem through constant insults and put-downs. I was constantly berated for my weight. I was constantly compared to other women. I was made to feel like I was stupid and that I was ignorant. If I had an opinion, it was wrong. If I didn't have an opinion, I was wrong, and I was stupid, and I lacked any kind of mental stability. So he would say that I was not intelligent. So by the time Anthony got to me, I was very, very broken, because you see, that's what they do. They take you, they manipulate you, they make you feel like you have to depend on them, like they're your everything. And that's what they want. They want to isolate you. They want you to feel like you depend solely upon them for everything. And then they berate you, they name call you, they shame you, they tell you that you wouldn't be loved by anybody else. Nobody else would want you if I leave. And that's exactly what he would tell me. Nobody else would want you if I leave. I'm the only one that could ever love you. Nobody else would ever love you if I left you. And that's how he kept me manipulated and dependent upon him, because when he would not get his way, he would tell me, like, we moved right before he left me. We moved down here to my parents' house, and we had a bunch of rodents, because in his crazy mind, he wanted to get rich quick. And so he decided, for some reason, he was very impulsive, that he was going to buy all of these rats and mice, and he was going to breed them and then sell them as feeders to pet places. And I just kind of looked at him, because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So when we were getting ready to move down here, he looked at me and he said, do not say one word to your parents about these rats and mice. If you say one word to them before we get down there, and they cancel us coming down there because of these rats and mice, because my mom had already told us, no, they're not coming in there. He said, if you tell them that we still have them, I will leave you and you will never see me again, and you will not get a divorce. And so he had me so fearful every time that he didn't get his way, that he would leave. If I would have been the same person I am today, I would have said, okay, bye, there's the door. Don't let the door hit you, with the good Lord split you. But back then I was a different person. I was very meek and very mild, and very terrified that if he left, that nobody would love me. And that's exactly how he wanted me. He had isolated me from my whole entire family. I got to see them, but it was not very often, because we lived like an hour or so away. And so he had me exactly where he wanted me at. We were in a different town. I didn't know anybody up there, but he had his brother and stuff up there, but I didn't know anybody in that area. So it was a very difficult time. I was at the time when we lived up there, I didn't have a job at first. I was addicted to pornography. We were living in a little bitty tiny camper that was maybe, it was maybe 24 feet. I mean, It wasn't long. I don't think it was even that long, because I remember we could literally take 10 steps and we'd be from one end to the other end of this little bitty camper. It had running lights, but it had no water. It had nothing. So when we had to take a shower or go to the bathroom, we would have to walk up to the pilot. And so and that's exactly how, it didn't bother him, but it bothered me. And so he kept me dehumanized by living like that. And he would often, bring it up that, it's because I needed to get a job and I was looking for a job, but he kept pushing the issue, like it was my fault that we were having to stay in this camper, even though it was his impulsive decision, again, to move us out of a trailer that we had that was decent rent. And I had a good job, and he decided on a whim just to move everything into storage and move up to this other place. And so, but again, he projected, turned it around on me, made himself the victim, and I was the victimizer. And that's exactly what they do. They play the victim card, even though they are the ones that are the instigators. They are the ones that cause the problem, cause the issue, but then they want to cry that they are the victim, and they want to point fingers, and they are very good at manipulating people into believing that they are truly the victim. In an effort to control others, narcissistic people may even meticulously monitor the movements and whereabouts of those close to them. Narcissistic people cannot stand the thought of being wrong. That's an understatement. And so when challenged about their behavior, they become oversensitive and go on the attack. They may gaslight people who call them out by denying what they said or did. And that's exactly what, when I called him out, which was very rare because I was very timid, he would project it on me, and he would be like, I didn't say that, you said that. And I'm like, no, I didn't say that, you said that. But he would become very offensive about it, and he would adamantly deny that he had said that. And so it was a complete and total manipulation, constantly, mental games, mental torment, mental abuse, and emotional abuse. Other times they may claim that what they said or did was just a joke. When we lived in the camper, he had forgotten his phone at work. He had forgotten his phone, and he went up to go take a shower. And his phone kept going off, and he didn't have it locked. And I noticed that it was a lady texting him. So I picked up his phone and realized that they had been talking for some time, and he was asking her very inappropriate questions, and it was really bad. So I remember very timidly going up to him at work because it had been bothering me all day, and I took him off to the side and I confronted him on it. He never denied that he did it, but he said he was just joking around, and I just kind of looked at him and I'm like, you shouldn't be joking around like that with someone else though. I'm your wife. But he just joked around and said, well, baby, it was nothing, I promise you. And I even hate saying baby when it comes to that man. But that was just what he had said. It meant nothing. It was a joke. Little did I know that he was already contemplating on talking to someone else in that family, because he had been friends with that family for a very long time. And he wanted to be in that family. For whatever reason, he wanted to be in that family. And so that was one of the sisters he had been talking to, and the woman that he actually cheated on me with was this lady's sister. So yeah, I'll let you wrap your mind around that. Narcissistic people are incredibly adept at turning the blame on anybody and everybody but themselves, often projecting their own failures and shortcomings on others and accusing the people in their lives of the very things that they themselves are guilty of. Living with or being close to a narcissistic person can be, at the very least, emotionally taxing. At worst, you may find yourself suffering abuse. Whether a person has MPD or simply displays narcissistic tendencies, it can be difficult to know how to interact with them, especially for Christians who want to behave in a way that is consistent with godly character. Here are 4 things to keep in mind if you are dealing with someone in your life who is acting narcissistically. Remember, you are not a doormat. All Christians are called to grow in the fruit of the Spirit as outlined by Paul in Galatians 5:22 through 23. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. But Christians must also recognize that love is not opposed to preserving oneself against the abuses of another. Patience is not opposed to setting limits. Gentleness is not opposed to rebuke. And while self-control keeps us from lashing out in unhealthy or ungodly ways, it does not require us to continue putting ourselves in situations where we are at risk of being emotionally, spiritually, and even physically harmed. The fine line Christians must walk is always striving to be kind while not enabling mistreatment or abuse. Refusing to hold a grudge while not allowing narcissistic people to continually tear us down. And it was not until after my ex left me, he didn't divorce me, he left me, we were separated, is when I got saved. And after I got saved, that's when the Lord really started dealing with me. I started praying, actively praying for my spouse and asking God that he would touch him, that he would deliver him from these tendencies, and just really seeking God's face on healing our marriage, because I was still willing to allow it to work, because at this time, you know, even though he had an affair on me, he was willing to work it out, or so he said. So I was actively seeking to rectify our marriage. But what I didn't know was that he was manipulating me and this other lady that he was seeing, and he was playing both sides while we didn't know it. And then something dropped in my spirit one day, and I knew what he was doing. And so what I did was I went up to where he was working unannounced, and he was so frazzled. And I asked him why he was so nervous, and he said, I just wasn't expecting you. I didn't think you would be here today. And I looked at him and I said, is she here? And he looked at me kind of funny. He said, no, she's not here. And come to find out, after I left again, my ex-sister-in-law called me and told me that she had been up there the whole entire time, that they were actually supposed to meet dinner together that night. And I had ruined his plans because, well, I was there. And she was at this time very, very pregnant with their child. And so the sad thing is that I was willing to step up and be the stepmother to this child and love this child like it was my own. And I had no hard feelings towards this baby. It was not this baby's fault for what had happened. And I had forgiven both of them for what had happened, but it doesn't mean that I was going to allow them to continue to manipulate me, and I was not going to be a doormat for them. So when it became obviously clear that he was not going to change, that he had no desire to change, he had no desire to seek God, I made the very hard but I had been fervently praying to the Lord for guidance and answers. And the Lord gave me an opportunity to witness to him, and to also, in love and kindness and calmness, request a divorce. And it took 1.5 years, but I got my divorce. But it was only because she wanted to get married. And that was a God thing, because we had been praying, God, if it's not your will for us to get back together, or if he's not going to change, I pray, Lord, that you would have her want to get married, and that he would have no choice but to give me my divorce, or whatever it is, Lord. I ask that you would make it happen. And it was just a matter of months, and I had my divorce after I prayed that. I prayed for God's will. And as soon as I prayed God's will, everything just fell into place. You know, so I know some people are like, you know, oh, well, she got a divorce. I was in biblical grounds for, first off, to get a divorce. Another thing, there is nothing that says in the Bible that you have to stay in an abusive relationship. If you are being abused and misused and mistreated, and especially if your partner, your spouse, is not saved, that puts it in a totally different ballpark. Now, if you are someone who's proclaiming to be a Christian, but you're a narcissist, I really struggle with that. Because you see, narcissists are self-centered. And the last thing they care about is devoting their life and receiving the free gift of salvation, because then they think that takes away from themselves. And that they are no longer living for themselves, but they are living for Christ. And so they have a really hard time to accepting that, because they want everything in this world. They want this world. They don't want to give it up, but yet they want not so much they want salvation, but they want eternity. They don't want to be cast out in utter darkness. That thought scares them, because they would be all alone. And they don't like the thought of being alone, but that's why they're always manipulating people and using people to get what they want, to get them to do what they want them to do, because they can't stand the thought of being alone. And so they are constantly, it's a lot of it's control. They have to be in control of the situation. And if they are not in control of the situation, they go into mayday mode and panic mode, because they don't know what to do, because they are so used to being in control. And that's because they can manipulate people. But once they lose that control over you, once my spouse lost that control over me, he lost interest in me. And the sad thing is, it took Anthony for me to really see how a marriage was supposed to be, especially a marriage between a man who was a Christian, and, he loved Jesus, and so he loved me like Christ loved the church. And so to actually get an opportunity to see how a marriage was supposed to be was a beautiful and very humbling thing. And even though it was only for 9 wonderful years, God blessed me with such a mighty man of God that is still having an impact on so many people. I was talking to someone just the other day, and they were telling me how they didn't know that I'd been married to Anthony. It was actually one of my former students. We're going to have his little sister in our room this year, and she was telling me, I didn't know you were married to Anthony. And I said, yeah, he was my husband. And she said, do you know that after my mom's husband, I guess it was her stepdad, but she said my mom's husband died, that Anthony, we were both working at the same place. My mom and her mom and her and Anthony were all working at the same place. But Anthony was just contracted out. He didn't actually work for this company. But this was just the kind of person Anthony was. After her husband died, Anthony went in on his own time and helped her set up her office after she lost her husband. And so that made such a lasting impact on them that they still remembered it these many years later. And so that was a very wonderful thing to hear, that my husband had been so kind-hearted to a grieving wife. And it just made me realize even more how blessed I was. And it took me marrying Anthony to see how abusive my other marriage was, and how, I came with a lot of baggage when I married Anthony, and I was paranoid. I had horrible trust issues. I was constantly saying I'm sorry, because it was a defense mechanism, because anytime he would get angry, he would lash out and he would throw these terrible tantrums when he didn't get his way. And all I could do was say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, to calm him down and make him feel like, he's got the control back. And that was just my defense mechanism, just to survive this marriage. And I did not realize how bad it was until after I married Anthony and I seen how good it was. And so we sat down and I told him about my previous marriage, and he was almost in tears. And I remember him saying, well, I promise you I am nothing like him, and I will love you with all my heart, and I will cherish you. And so you don't know how much that meant to me. So my heart goes out to you all that are struggling in your marriages, married to somebody who is so selfish, and it's sad, because at the same time they can be good people and have good hearts, but still, to the person that they're supposed to love the most, they treat like garbage when they treat other people so good. And it's hard to understand why. And like I said, we need to pray for their deliverance. This line can often feel difficult to find partiality When the narcissistic person is someone close to your heart, such as a parent, sibling, or someone you otherwise have admired or looked up to. Discernment requires prayer, so we must seek God's wisdom as we learn to deal with narcissistic people in our lives. Set boundaries and stick to them. What is important to remember when dealing with a narcissistic person is that you can't control how they act or how they feel towards you, but you can control what you do. So set firm boundaries and commit to sticking to them. These boundaries may include removing yourself from a situation when a narcissistic person begins attacking you, refusing to respond favorably when they launch into a diatribe that assumes the worst of others' motives, and speaking up when they have shared your personal information without permission, or standing firm when you have told them no. Be gracious in the way you go about setting and communicating these boundaries, but also wise about it. You know, guys, there is not a perfect person out there, but if you were proclaiming Christ, we are called to love one another. And that's what Jesus told the disciples. A new commandment I give to you, that you love each other as I have loved you. You love one another, and that's how everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. And sadly, I have seen so many people in the past that they claim to be Christians, but there's no love in their hearts for others. And sadly, that happened to me last night. And I'm not going to get into the details because this is not a bash. I'm not here to bash anyone. But it was very sad. And the sad thing was, the same thing I was just talking about in this video happened to me last night. And it brought up a lot of pain that I had thought that I was over with, and I know exactly what it was. It was an attack from the enemy, because for one thing, I had come clean about how I was struggling with anger, and this person kept throwing the anger back up in my face and throwing my weight in my face, which was a really low blow, because I mean, come on, I know I'm fat. I know I need to lose weight. I don't need anybody telling me I need to lose weight. I mean, and when I tried to explain to them, this is exactly when I knew they were a narcissist, when I tried to explain to them that yes, I know I'm overweight and I'm not denying that fact, I'm not delusional, but I gained a lot of weight when my husband died. And yes, I sunk into a depression and I ate my feelings. It's not okay, but I did. They didn't acknowledge the fact that I had lost my husband, my best friend. They didn't acknowledge my feelings. There was no empathy there. It was all about them. And they kept twisting my words and projecting them back on me. And I did say some things I probably shouldn't have said last night. I didn't cuss them out. I wasn't ugly. I didn't yell and scream over the text. I just told them that they were a narcissist and quite possibly demon-possessed. And I've asked the Lord to help me not to say those kind of things anymore. And I admit that I got a little emotional last night, but, you know, and it all stemmed from something so silly, but I called them out on something in love and kindness. I didn't say anything ugly to them. I got everything saved. I said it so lovingly and kind, and they projected it and started saying that I wasn't a Christian, that I wasn't going to be raptured because the love of Christ wasn't in me, and all of this ugly, nasty stuff that I'm not going to get into because I don't want to puff them up. And I definitely don't want to start any more drama, because that's the last thing that I want is more drama. But this person could just really use some prayer. I'm not going to mention names, but this person has on very many occasions attacked many brothers and sisters in Christ, especially those who are actually making videos instead of distilling videos from other people, and rare occasion making a video. But like I said, this is not a bashing, and I shouldn't have probably said what I just said. Sometimes when we're hurt, we say things we shouldn't say. But I have chosen to forgive this person. I have chosen to leave what they have said behind me because I can't let it affect me. I have given my anger and my hurt over to the Lord, and I am not taking it back. And like I said, you know, Satan knows our weak points, and he will jab. He will jab, and he will jab, and he will jab. And what better way to get at me than with a person that had that character trait, that disorder, and attack me with it. But like I said, just pray for the person. That's all I'm gonna say. And I love you, sister. Even though you hurt me, I love you, and I'm praying for you. And I know you're going to twist my words, and you're going to say that I said ugly things about you, but I'm okay with that, because I don't answer to you. I only answer to God. And that's how we all have to be. We have to answer in love and kindness, and sometimes we're going to fail at that, and it doesn't make it okay, but we know that there's forgiveness. And even if the people you maybe didn't even intentionally mean to hurt, you go to them and you say, I'm sorry. And then if they don't forgive you, then that's between them and God. Don't let it affect you. And if you are someone who is proclaiming to be a Christian, but you have these tendencies and you're not treating your spouse or your children or your coworkers or your parents or your friends or your siblings right, you need to repent. And you need to truly come to Jesus, because when we're in Jesus, we love. We might not always agree with everyone. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree. And sometimes you don't get your way. That's how life goes. When you grow up, life doesn't always go the way you want it to go. It's when you're in a marriage, it's a give and take. You don't just get to take, and mentally and verbally abuse that person that you proclaim to love. Because when you're doing that, that's not the love of Christ. And I say this because we are so close to the rapture. And it's time to get on the ark. We've got to put all of this behind us. We've got to hold on to Jesus, because any second now that trumpet is going to sound. And oh, I feel so sorry for the left behind. Because the stuff that's coming upon this earth. There's never been a time like it's coming upon the earth. 1 Corinthians 15, 1-4 tells us that if we believe, just as the scriptures say, that Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins, that he was buried, and on the third day he rose again, then we will be saved. That is the gospel. If you believe that, you are saved. But it's time to come now. Time is out. You know, and I say all of this that I've said in love, because I truly do love people, and the thought of people being left behind breaks my heart. Not just because I have family that are not saved, but thinking about your families, and thinking about my neighbors, and thinking about people that are sitting in church that are just going through the motions, and they've really not placed their faith and trust in Jesus. You know, it's all about what Jesus did. It's not about what we've done and what we can do. Our righteousness is as filthy rags to God. But when we come to Christ and we accept his free gift of salvation, Jesus, his righteousness covers us. And that's all that God sees, is his son's righteousness, the blood that covers us. Time. I don't know how much time we have left, but things are definitely heating up. Things are definitely heating up. You know, today was the 40-day marker from the eclipse. And things, we have seen crazy things since that happened on April 8th. So many crazy things have happened. You know, we've had the aurora borealis across the world. And I mean, it was beautiful, but it was definitely a warning. And it was definitely a prayer that I wanted answered, but I knew it wasn't something good. But in my heart, I guess I was thinking, if we see the Aurora Borealis, or the Northern Lights as they're also called, that we're fixing to go home, because that's not something that's good. And they were seen all across the world. And we're supposed to see them again here soon. And then we have all of the fires that are taking place again, and we have the earthquakes. You know, we just had, I think it was Dyersburg, Tennessee, which is about 3 hours away from us. They just had a 3.8 earthquake on what is the name of that fault line right there? I always forget that fault line name. I don't know why. But on the fault line right there. It was right there on that fault line. Madrid. I think that's what it's called, Madrid. Anyways, you know, and then California's having all of these earthquakes, plus what Russia's, you know, doing, and what's happening, and especially what's happening in Israel. Y'all better wake up. Normal's not coming back, and normal will never come back. The times of living in blissful ignorance is over with. And if you're listening to this video, you cannot say you've not been warned, because you have been warned. And if you do not heed the warnings, your blood is on your head, not on mine, and not anyone else who is warning. If you are not heeding these warnings, that's between you and God. You don't want to be here, though, for the time that is coming upon this earth. For it is going to be horrific. All right, if you have any prayer requests, please put them in the comment section. Remember to post your questions for the live Saturday over Revelation and the 7-year tribulation. Make sure you put question for live, so that way I know it's for the live, and I'll make sure that I heart it, so that way you know I've seen it. And just remember to keep praying for the lost while we're here. I can't tell you the burden that I've had the past couple of weeks, but especially the past few days. The burden has been off the charts. Just grief is the only thing I can say. It's grief. And it's horrible, but I'm so ready to get out of here, and I rejoice for that. But then at the same time, I grieve, not for myself, but I grieve for this world. And I think that's one reason why the grief has been amplified. It's not just because of Anthony. Because I know where my beloved's at. He's at home. And soon I'm going to see him again. I grieve because I think about my family and your family, and, you know, our friends, and, like I said, our neighbors and our co-workers, and the person that lives, you know, that we've talked to walking down the street, you know, just people. Thinking about people being here, it's just heartbreaking. But alright, I'm starting to ramble. But please know, if you're going through this, what we talked about, narcissism, please know that I'm praying for you. And there's a lot of people praying for you. And sadly, you know, especially in this day and age, people are obsessed with themselves. We see it all over social media. They are in love with themselves. And sadly, this generation, a lot of them, not all of them, there's a lot of them that just don't care about anybody but themselves. And it's very evident in the way they treat people. It's part of the lawlessness that's coming upon this world. And that's not going to get better. And once the restrainer is gone, it's going to be really bad. But alright, I love you all. If you don't know Jesus, it's time to come. Don't wait any longer. You are not guaranteed your next breath. And the rapture could happen at any second now. And I'm not kidding, and I'm not making a joke about this. It could seriously happen at any second now. Any minute. And one day you might wake up and your spouse might be gone out of the bed. Your children might be missing from school. Your boss might not come in to work, and it's because their wife woke up and he was not there, or she was not there. All hell is about to break loose. All right, I love you all. God bless you all. And I will talk to you very soon. Bye.